Benson is one of the characters with one of the most different anatomies in the series' regular show. His structure raises many questions for us. Was Benson born, or was he manufactured? And what about how his body works? I mean, does he have a brain? And what are those gumballs on his head for? Does he have a heart, a stomach? And how on earth can we explain when Benson... Well, don't worry, my friends. You asked, and here I bring you answers. Or something like that. Welcome to another section of Character Anatomy. In the universe of regular show, we have very different creatures from what we might consider normal. Magical beings, flying DVDs and Blu-rays, Yetis and talking clouds, and so on and so on. But even these characters are much more natural or humans than our park manager Benson. If you think about it, Benson is a being that apparently has life, but is made of crystal, sturdy armored crystal, and his other parts are probably just metal and gum, right? It seems he doesn't have much connection with any being that appears to have life in this universe. I mean, does Benson have 5 senses? In reality, we don't know where Benson comes from. We know he has a family that is relatively close, including his mom, dad, and siblings. All of them are somehow gum machines, which suggests that Benson might have been produced by his own family members. But I can't imagine how Mrs. Dunwoody could have given birth to Benson. Maybe there's some compartment from which a little gum machine emerges? I doubt it. The most likely scenario that comes to mind is that Benson was created by someone else, like a manufacturer. So Mr. and Mrs. Benson might have gone to this someone to have a child made because they were starting a family. And this isn't just a theory I'm pulling out of my darkest thoughts. It's a concept that has been used in other franchises, like for example Disney Cars, where the cars themselves talk about the great manufacturer. But now that we have a rough idea where Benson comes from, let's talk about how his body works. Apparently, Benson has the basic functions of a normal human. He can see, breathe, eat, taste, and must have some sort of stomach. He even goes to the bathroom.
I need to take my last bathroom break as an employed man.
Seriously, does Benson go to the bathroom? What comes out of Benson when he goes to the bathroom? Whoa. Anyway, let's start from the top all the way to his bottom of his body. Benson's head is made of crystal, metal, and gum. I have no idea what his eyes are made of, but they must be connected to something. The closest theory we have is that the gumballs on Benson's head represent his brain. The protective crystal could serve as a sort of information conductor, like fiber optic for example. I mean, in a world where Blu-rays transform and can talk, could be very possible, right? Each gum on Benson's head could function as a unit of information storage. Maybe some focus on motor skills, speech, and probably memories. Benson, unlike humans, doesn't have a compartmentalized brain. His is more free. But Benson's brain is peculiar because it can display his emotions to the world. If you remember, when Benson gets angry, his gums, or brain, changes to a reddish color. With this, we can confirm that these gumballs dictate how Benson feels, acts, and thinks. But what about when Benson dispenses gumballs? Is he getting rid of a part of his brain?
Get back here and help me pick up my gumballs!
A very complicated question. If we consider destruction of a gum machine, the answer could be somewhat creepy, right? Possibly Benson, like any living being, is continually shedding biological elements that have lost their function. In humans, it might be hair, dead skin, nails, and thousands of cells that die inside us. But guess what? New cells are always being born. So Benson might not be getting rid of his brain, but it could be one of his organs, cells, or even poop? Yes, we've got to the topic of Benson going to the bathroom. Many times throughout the series, Benson has had to go. But if we look at the physical structure, he doesn't have any openings to go number 2. Number 1, maybe? What I think is that Benson actually has a stomach, so he must have some kind of digestive system, possibly made of metal, but he only has 2 openings. The water he consumes probably helps transform whatever he eats into gum. It also keeps his insides lubricated, whether they are made of metal or something else. So, Benson essentially excretes all of this in the form of gumballs. But what we don't know is the taste of these gumballs. Given everything we've discussed, they could be gumballs that look appetizing on the outside, but are filled with your worst nightmare on the inside. Or who knows, maybe Benson's digestive system is very advanced and turns whatever he eats into delicious cherry-flavored gum. You have the final word on this. Now, let's talk about his limbs, which are probably the easiest to explain. We have a brain and organs that function thanks to the brain. Maybe Benson doesn't need a heart, but instead he has a motor that acts like a heart. And this is what keeps Benson moving, perhaps using a basic hydraulic system. But here's a problem. When Benson played the world's hardest drum solo, we could see for a moment that he has a bone structure similar to that of a human. If we think about it, this makes total sense considering Benson's design. He had to grow somehow. Yes, he's a machine with life, but to give him a more biological development, it made more sense for certain organs to be more like those of a living creature. In this case, the presence of bones that gradually grow over time. I don't think that if Benson had some component programmed to grow and suddenly it failed, it would have looked good. It also might have affected the rest of Benson's body function significantly. For example, what if one leg grew but the other didn't? Or what if his head grew but his eyes didn't? Or vice versa? Well, finally, let's address the ultimate question. Where did Benson come from and how was he created? Who developed all this technology to have a living gumball machine? Out of the few characters with technology as advanced as this, Anti-Pops comes to mind. He's like the supreme being of the universe, apart from Pops, of course. But whether Benson comes from a planet or another galaxy, Anti-Pops seems to be the only one responsible. Perhaps Benson was specifically designed to take care of the park, from his upbringing to his way of thinking, so that history would always repeat itself and Anti-Pops would rule forever. Okay, we're diving into deep questions here. What do you think of Benson's anatomy? And do you have any other theories? I'll see you in the comments.